Dracula is a new short series adaptation that was shown on the BBC this week. Comprises 3 episodes, each an hour and a half long. It's written by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, who people will know from the popular Sherlock series. This is an attempt to fill that gap, I think. It's uneven and still good in places, but I think it's got its problems. I suppose the best way to look at it is that the first 2 episodes are effectively the special, as it were, the Christmas special, the adaptation of Dracula that people want, and then the 3rd episode feels more like a backdoor TV pilot. The first 2 episodes follow Dracula in the 1800s, where Jonathan Harker visits Castle Dracula to deal with purchasing of Carfax Abbey in England by Dracula so he can move there. Dracula drains Harker of his blood while he's trapped at the castle for a month, with Dracula very quickly becoming young and Harker becoming more and more diseased and vampiric. So he's all effectively a sort of lower level vampire come walking corpse by the end of it. Dracula finds Harker after he escapes from the castle in his poor state of health at a convent where we meet a nun called Agatha Van Helsing, played by Dolly Wells, who is interviewing Harker about his time at Castle Dracula. And you get some scenes that are with good gore and suspense that I'll go over. The 2nd episode is Dracula travelling to England on a boat called the Demeter, and him wiping off the people on the boat so he can stay alive, and people sort of looking at each other wondering who the killer is. And it ends with Dracula being beaten by Van Helsing, who's also on the boat, and the ship getting set on fire and sinking off the coast of England in, I'm guessing, the Channel, and Dracula falling to the bottom of the Channel in his coffin. At the very end of that episode, you find that Dracula busts out of the coffin and walks onto the beach, because obviously he doesn't drown because he's undead. And you're meant to think it's sort of an hour later, but really it's 120 odd years later, and it's a modern day where he's met by a relative of Van Helsing, played by Dolly Wells again, who works for the Jonathan Harker Foundation, a sort of semi-secret organisation that deals with medical research on its front end, but it really exists to locate, trap and investigate Dracula. They've got a secret base under Carfax Abbey and lots of money from mysterious backers who are only alluded to but never fully explained. Dracula escapes using Renfield, who's his solicitor, played by Mark Gatiss, who puts legal arguments to them, saying, quite cleverly, it's not illegal to be really old, and you have to prove that vampires exist, which isn't a legal thing anyway, so you better just let him free because you're holding him against his will and you're not allowed to do that. They comply, and Dracula sets up in London using sort of Tinder type apps to find victims and have them come to him effectively, which is a nice way to look at how he might find people. When you see in the Hammer films, now you see Dracula go into nightclubs to get victims, and this is just an extension of that, which I thought was quite clever. He meets a girl called Lucy Weston who he falls in love with, wants to become a bride because she's so into death and being with him. She sort of gives herself to him. He doesn't have to try and capture her. Due to a mix-up when she gets fully turned, she dies, and she then has to sort of wake up in her grave. When she gets resurrected a couple of days later, her family have her cremated instead of buried, so she's alive while she's being cremated, and you see her getting burnt to death in her coffin, and then she comes back as this charred, mangled corpse, which looks really cool. And then you end up with Van Helsing, who has the memories of Agatha Van Helsing in a sort of Alpha and Quantum Leap way, where she drunk Dracula's blood that has Van Helsing's memories in it, and now the nun appears to her to give her help and assistance, much as Al did in Quantum Leap. she works out that Dracula isn't actually sort of adverse to sunlight and crosses and such, and that it's all just sort of phobias he has, and that he's actually just a coward and he's scared of death. Once she explains that to him and he realises it, he's happy to die straight away, and because she's also dying from cancer, he drinks her blood, which kills him, and the act of drinking it also kills her, and the series ends. First off, the series isn't ending there. This is quite clearly a TV pilot that they've just sort of shoehorned onto the end of the first 2 episodes. There's too many things set up in it. There's this Jonathan Harker Foundation set up with sinister backers and motives. There's this boyfriend character from the girl who's killed, burnt alive. He's set up and he doesn't really do anything. You know that he's probably angling to be one of the protagonists in the series. There's a whole other cast of friends that's there as well, and there's just too many things in place for it to not be continued in the same manner that, say, Sherlock was, with maybe 1 or 2 episodes every year or so coming out. I'm sure they'll write a way out of what happened with Dracula. Okay, moving on then. The effects are really good. There's really good gory, horrible, scary moments that are amplified due to the quality of the effects and the way it's shot. There's Dracula bursting out of a wolf's body when he transforms from a wolf to a man, and he's all covered in gore and he's naked and he looks gross and he's got his teeth going, and that looks great. There's lots of good sort of undead effects throughout the episodes, and they're used really well. There's like a creepy child in a graveyard. Jonathan Harker looks gross and grim. There are other effects on the Demeter with a sort of zombie coming out of a coffin to get one of the characters. That's done really well, and it looks good for the most part. There's only one element of green screen that I thought looked a bit weird, which is when he was on a beach at the start of the 3rd episode, but other than that, it's good. The other thing that I both like and have problems with are these sort of clever takes on how to deal with Dracula. One aspect I liked was how they deal with him being modern and being in the modern world. He says, "Oh yeah, I've learned how to use all these things because I'm used to times changing. I'm like 500 years old. I'm not like you guys where I just think about stuff as comes. I'm used to seeing things change and I can get a grip on things. Also, I absorb people's memories when I drink their blood, so I get a sort of boost intellectually, on the latest things when I've drunk their blood. So that's good." And he also looks at sort of someone's house that's a bit of a shithole and goes, "Oh my god, this is amazing. Everything around here is luxurious. I used to live in a castle that didn't even have working lights, and you're trying to say that this place is not very nice. You've got carpet, you've got comfy chairs, you've got food everywhere. So this is brilliant." Also, like the way that when they're trying to get Dracula out of this house at the start of the 3rd episode, he just says on the phone, "Well, you're not going to come out. It's daylight, and I'm in a building. What are you going to do about it?" Of course, don't realise they've invented bulldozers and JCBs. So the people who are trying to get him out just go, "Fair enough, we'll knock it down," and just immediately get a JCB and start knocking the building down. And he thinks, "Oh shit." I thought that's quite a nice way to do it. That's straight to the point. That's what people might do, and that stopped smart asses like me shouting at the TV screen trying to say, "Well, why don't you just do that?" So I like that. The thing I didn't like was that they got rid of so many good aspects of Dracula's character. They make him too jokey and jovial. And I know you might say, well, okay, this is a guy who's been alive for so long, he's so powerful that you don't really have any cares in the world other than having to feed. So he would be cocky and arrogant and a bit sort of, "Way." But I just didn't like it. It was too much of it, and it was so jarring when compared to the dark nature of the rest of it that I didn't feel it was sort of the right tone to set. You could have him being arrogant, that's fine, but this sort of super jokey, it just sort of got on my nerves, and it sort of died down towards the end of the series, to be honest. I think they probably realised that as well, but it just jarred straight away. The other thing I didn't like was him not having any trace of his former accent. I know they say that he's learnt it from drinking people's blood, how to speak English and that, but when you first meet Dracula, he's all old and decrepit, and he's doing the "I want to drink your blood" accent, and you think that's good. They could have left a trace of that, just a trace of it. Maybe if he gets angry or when he gets irritated, you could have that sort of come out, as if he's sort of losing his cool and losing his composure. But instead, they have him just doing that right from the off, which I found a little bit off-putting as well. And I think the problem is you've got to be careful. If you compromise so much with the character and go, oh, well, we'll change this bit to make it cool and modern, we'll change this bit to make it different, we'll change this bit to make it different, you end up cutting away and compromising so much that you lose the core character that everyone liked and everyone wanted to see. And particularly when you've got 4.5 hours of screen time to play with, I don't think you need to make them jumps so quickly. You could have had him losing his accent more towards the end of the last episode, perhaps, when he's fully adjusted. But I don't know. It just jarred with me. I think it's worth watching. I think the first 2 episodes definitely are worth watching. They're almost like a little confined special in themselves. If you like the first 2 episodes, then watch the 3rd one and see what you think. If you agree with me that you think it's a backdoor pilot, let me know. I'd be interested to see if it's just me being sort of, silly with my views, but I think 100% they've got no intentions of finishing it there if it's popular, because the BBC is so bereft of sort of original material anyway. And if there's any other bits you noticed in it that you think are cool, or there's little Easter eggs in it, let us know, because I'm really interested in that kind of stuff anyway. I think it's fun. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.